Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jeff again. Um, I'm going to have to think of a new name for my channel. I can't call it Horseback Wisdom because I don't have any horses anymore. Um, and very soon we will be defarmed and having moved back to a town. So I have to think of a new name. Maybe something that has to do with ruminating or thinking. But anyway, today's video is about a very important subject. It's about health. So today I'm going to teach you how to live a healthy, disease-free, active life. Now, if you haven't liked and subscribed to my channel, please do so. And share this video because I'm going to give you some important information. It'll be simply taught, and there will be some scientific words, but I'll make sure they're easy for everybody to grasp because that's how I learn best. Now, to begin with, anytime somebody proposes to teach you something, you ought to ask, well, why should I listen to this person? And not necessarily to do that in a callous way, but in a way that's inquisitive because you want to be a lifelong learner. I have a funny story about that I'll share in a little bit. But to answer the question of why you might want to listen to me with regard to health, I'm 60 years old. I've never had a major illness. I've never had surgery except to repair an injury, a surfing injury on my leg, or my foot, actually. I did have a minor surgery in the military for a poisonous spider bite in the Middle East, but that was minor. I'm active. I don't. The only medication I take is an allergy pill because I live in a place where all of the pollen from all of civilization descends on us every spring. Um, I don't have any physical limitations for the things that I want to do. For example, and this is not bragging, but this is how everybody should be, or even better. But for example, I work a full time job, so I worked the other day, and then I went outside and took down, about an acre's worth of fencing and dug up the poles and piled them up to get ready to burn. And then I came in and did my workout, and then, had dinner with my beautiful family, and that's a kind of a typical day for me. Um, And another reason I wanted to do this video is because a very young couple approached me a while back and they said, Mr. Jeff, we're half your age and we can't do hardly any of the things you do. We get so tired and worn out and we have these medications we have to take. We're sick. Why? Well, I'm going to share that with you. So part of why I'm able to teach you this is my own personal experience, but also medical research. Before I took the position that I've had for the last 20 years, I was a genetics researcher. Actually, I had intended to pursue a career in medicine and genetics, but as often happens, life changes course, and that didn't work out. But I have published some uh, peer-reviewed journal articles on human genetics, and specifically, I had an idea. There's this terrible disease that occurs in just a few countries in the world, but it's a horrible affliction on young people, and it's based on, um, for lack of a better way to describe it, something called free radicals, the oxygen molecules and other molecules that bounce around inside someone's body. And this causes tremendous amounts of oxidative damage. See, we need oxygen in our cells, but we need it in a regulated way, and God provided that for us by creating us the way He did. Well, we have messed that up. But one of the ways that we've messed that up is the habitat that we being humanity, have built for ourselves. Now, the advice I'm going to give you doesn't require any special vitamins or lotions or potions, or you don't have to buy a membership to anything. I'm not selling anything. But it does require a change in the way that you think. So, how to get at least to age 60 without taking medication, without being hospitalized, without having major surgery, without being sick. I get the occasional, you know, head cold once every few years, but anyway, so how does one go about doing that sort of thing? And the answer, of course, is found in the Bible. Stick with me. So I'm in Psalms chapter 34. And in this psalm, starting in verse 11, David says, "Come, you children, hearken unto me, and I will teach you the fear of the Lord. What man is he that desireth life and loveth many days, that he may see good? Keep thy tongue from evil and thy lips from speaking guile." And here's the part I really want you to concentrate on. "Depart from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it." In verse 14 is what I really want you to concentrate on. 14b, seek peace and pursue it. Now that word peace there is the word shalom. And I'm sure you've heard that word many, many times. And that word is translated peace in the Hebrew, but it means much more than that. So when I started to look at why are so many young people sick? Why are so many people my age in wheelchairs and taking medication? And I have a job that I've had for the last 20 years where I work on people's medical disabilities every day. I think last count over the last 20 years, I've helped like 20 some thousand people with their medical benefits. And let me get my tea out. And so I'm drinking green tea, and there'll be a reason for that as well. But why are so many people sick? I see people my age that I receive their applications for certain benefits, and some of them have 10 or 12 prescription medications, and they have coronary artery disease and chronic renal disease and every other disease. And that's not God's intention, and it's not God's intention for you. So that this video is not 7 hours long, quickly, when I looked into what in the world was really the problem behind especially America's health crisis. I can't speak to any other nation, but I can speak as an American, and I have been in much of the world. But why in America, for example, do we have a declining lifespan? We have greater mortality. We have higher infant mortality in some of our cities than in third world nations that don't have water. It's because of what we read about in verse 14. There is no shalom. There's no peace. as an example, the longest lived and most disease-free nation in the world is Japan. And yet, if you look at the lifestyle of the average Japanese person, and I happen to have, my grandmother was Japanese. I was adopted into a family that was that was Japanese. Um, they smoke much more than the average American. They drink alcohol, rice wine, and sake primarily. But um, why is it they have such little disease? Why is it that a Japanese man has a lifespan on average that's 20 years longer than an American and is disease free? Why is it that a Japanese woman has a lifespan that's 25 years longer than an American and is largely disease free, having almost no incidence of breast cancers? Why is that? Well, it's our habitat in large part. And shalom. If you look at Japanese culture, and not just Japanese culture, but other cultures like that, there's a shalom. There's a peace that occurs because they're in community, right? As Americans, we're isolationists. I live out on a farm in the country so that I can get away from people. But when I'm happiest is when I'm with other followers of Jesus, or I'm ministering to people that don't yet know Jesus and I can share with them. That's when I have the most joy. Yes, I love being out in the woods. I love being able to sit by a body of water and pray and watch the fish and all that. But I can find that anywhere. Literally, I mean, every major city has a park with it, And so when I'm happiest is when I'm with my family or when I'm with other believers. It's not when I'm out in the woods by myself. Now, I do love being out in the woods by myself, but I'm not as happy as when I'm in community. I don't have the shalom when I'm out by myself that I do in community. And something interesting happened when I was doing my medical research, or genetics research. So I was using one of the things that in the lab that I worked, we took different cell lines from different types of cancers, prostate primarily, or breast cancers. And because those cell lines have been propagated for research, and we had them, and you'd grow your cell line, your cultures, and you'd maintain them, and then you'd use them for different genetics experiments. But they were discarded into a vat filled with pure acetic acid, pure hydrogen chloride or bleach. These super acidic substances in which nothing can survive, I thought. So one day I came into the lab and I was cleaning out my cultures, and I happened to look into the vat where, after I suctioned out my cultures and cleaned out the dead cells, I happened to look into the vat, and a breast cancer membrane had grown across the top of the entire vat, filled with hydrochloric acid. And I was like, what in the world? Like this. And I showed one of our professors, and he was like, what in the world? This cancer cell line had grown through this acid and grown into a giant membrane that covered the entire, discard flask, for lack of a better term. It was the giant one. But anyway, and I thought, I'll never forget that. And I haven't. And I thought, and I prayed about it, and I researched, and I said, how in the world did these cells grow in this insanely acidic environment? And that's the key. Right? So, back to Shalom, Psalm 34, verse 14, and why everybody has all these sicknesses. What's it like to live in America versus, let's say, Japan? Okay? Your alarm goes off early in the morning, probably when it's still dark, if you're me. You have to get up, get ready, rush to an occupation that you may or may not like. I think the latest poll I saw was that like 65% of Americans actually hate their job. And so you have that stress. we have a dissolution of marriage. So you have one parent, generally a mother, who's got to get all the kids ready for school. She's got to try to jam some products in her mouth for some sort of energy that are not nutritious. And then she's got to whisk her kids to school or get them to the bus stop, and then worry all day whether they're going to be okay. Go to a job that she doesn't like, come home, get the kids, try to get them something to eat, and do that evolution all over again. Right? Hoping for a weekend where she can kind of de-stress, probably by drinking ethyl alcohol or doing something, or watching TV and eating a bunch of really toxic non-food products. That's life for tens of millions of Americans, right? Or someone's older, my age, they've grown up in that environment, and now some sort of a life stressor happens, right? And instead of having a community, a church that circles around them and loves them and says, "Hey, let's minister to you. What can we do to help?" They're on their own, right? And they're doing YouTube videos to say, "Hey, this is what I'm going through," right? I lost my job or whatever, and all of this stress is building in their mind and their body. The shalom is completely gone if they ever had it. So let's talk about all those things versus life in Japan, right? In Japan, people are going to go about their daily business, but in the community, right? They may have a job that's really stressful, but they're going to eat really good food, and they're going to be in community. Now, there is a growing trend of people isolating themselves in Japan, and that's bad. But I'm talking about the nation as a whole over the last 30, 40 years. They're going to be with their friends, with their family, right? When they go out, they're going to go with their family. When they go to bathe, they're going to go to a bathhouse, and they're actually going to bathe in community, right? And when they get older, they're not discarded like we do to Americans, right? Your family gets older, you stick them somewhere, or you try to get rid of them. Or maybe they've been such a caustic, toxic person that you can't wait to get rid of them, right? We tend to blame families for isolating their elders, but sometimes those elders were devilish and horrible. And if you spent time with them, they just created more chaos in your life. So there's some two sides to that coin. But the bottom line is the shalom that David just talked about is gone. Right? And then what do Americans do? They go home and watch television, or they jump on social media. What is social media filled with? Nonsense, right? People's lives that are not real. You know, some 20-year-old kid, let me tell you how I make $5 million every 10 minutes. Okay, which is complete hogwash. Or some lady, right? Or even worse, we have this vast network of pornography and wickedness that people get, and that just sucks the shalom right out of you, right? Anyway, all of those things create stress. Then you add to it, especially if you watch television or social media, you're seeing all of these people with fake lives that have all this stuff. And what does our culture tell you from the time you're a little kid? How many of you go to a restaurant and you see a mom and her kids all have a little pad and headphones on and they're staring at their little pad, right? They're not talking to each other. The other day I was at a restaurant and a mom had these kids, 3 little boys, a mom by herself. All the little boys had little pads with headphones on, and the mom and 2 of the boys got up to leave, and they turned around. They realized that the other boy was still sitting there with his pad and his headphones on, oblivious to the fact that his mom and brothers had just left. She ran back over to get him. That's not parenting. That's not life. There's no shalom there. What is she teaching those kids? To live in an electronic, non-shalom world. That's going to create sickness, anxiety, pain, all kinds of things, right? All right, so let's get to the meat and potatoes, right? How do we fix our life? How do we make sure we're healthy until 60, 70, 80? I plan on doing a video like this every 10 years. So I'll do one at 70, I'll do one at 80, I'll do one at 90. Unless the Lord comes back, and then it won't matter, right? We'll all be shalom and healthy. Those of us that are followers of Jesus, anyway. So meat and potatoes. How do you get to be healthy? Okay. Number one is the Word of God, right? Without Jesus, you're not gonna have shalom, right? Now you may somehow. And by the way, let me define healthy living. Healthy living is no chronic illness, no chronic pain, no ongoing medical treatment, right? That's healthy living. Healthy living isn't, oh, I made it to 80, but I'm on a ventilator, or I'm in a wheelchair with oxygen and all kinds of things sticking out of me. That's not healthy, right? Now, this is not, if you've ever watched any of my videos, I'm not shaming anyone, right? If you have a chronic illness, I'm going to show you how to get out of that. I'm not trying to tell you that you're bad or evil for having it. That's not what I'm saying at all, right? And especially if you were born with something. But you can still, right? I know a young man that has cerebral palsy and is in a wheelchair, and he was possibly the happiest person I ever met. So this is not about shaming or blaming or anything else. It's simply about giving you an easy formula to be healthy. And if I were sitting by those two young people that asked me that question, how they were half my age and sick and all that, I'd tell them the same thing. So here it is, okay? Shalom is number one. Orient your life to have peace. What does that mean? Well, you got to have community, family, church, right? If you don't have Christ, that's number one. Get Christ. How do you do that? You just cry out, say, Jesus, make yourself known to me, save me, give me your peace, and he will. Okay, so family, right? Let's say you have a dysfunctional family or whatever. You can create family by following God's plan for family, right? Do it in his way, and it will bless you, and it won't be a curse. How many of y'all know families that are just filled with train wreck after train wreck after train wreck? I know a bunch. Why? Because they don't follow God's plan for family. What about basic stuff? Okay, let's talk about food. When you go into a grocery store and you walk in the door, grocery stores are all designed the same way. When you walk in the grocery store and you go to the right, you're going to find the bread section or the vegetable section, right? And then if you go down that side, you're going to get to the meat or dairy, and sometimes they're flipped. And then if you go down the back wall, you're going to have the same thing where there'll be fish and meat and that sort of thing. And then if you come along the other wall, there'll be some other, it's probably where the pharmaceuticals or shampoos and those kind of things are. And then you come along the front side to check out, right? Avoid the center of the store. Shop along the outside, right? It is a lie from the devil that it's more expensive to eat good food than trash. Now, is trash expensive? Yeah. But you're killing yourself and your family. You're killing your children by giving them sugar processed cereals, refined carbohydrates, right? Buying them boxed cakes and cookies that have been sitting in a container for 9 months, right? Stop eating that garbage. It's trash. Hopefully our new administration will start to outlaw some of that junk because it's killing you, right? Stop buying Takis for your kids. Stop buying Cheetos, right? Now look, we're Americans. It's okay to have a helping of Cheetos once a month, right? It's not going to kill you. It's okay to have a soda once a month or something. But don't do it all the time. Shop on the outside of the store, right? You can get a baked rotisserie chicken for about $3 or $4 anywhere in the country, as far as I know. Maybe not California, but certainly where I live, you can get a fresh baked rotisserie chicken for about $4. You can get a bag of salad greens on sale for $2.50. You can get, a can, if you're going to buy a can, of pork and beans, or you can actually better get fresh beans, or in the produce section get some bell peppers or some whatever your kids like. Get that vegetable. Cook it in bacon. Bacon is good for you, actually. But eat that kind of fresh food that hasn't been dead for thousands of years or never was alive. Eat living things. Before I started this video, I had a handful of carrots. Eat carrots. If you hate carrots, eat broccoli. If you hate broccoli, eat bell peppers. If you hate bell peppers, eat cauliflower or squash, whatever. Find something that you like and eat it. Stop eating trash. My wife and I always joke, we know people that eat like a trash panda, right? Raccoon. Stop eating that way. It's killing you, number one. Number two, get Shalom. You say, well, Jeff, I can't. My schedule is, oh, you can. You see, you're a human. You're not a plant or a rock. You can change. You really can. You may not be able to change everything in one day, right? I get that. Sometimes you're going to have to do stuff that you don't really like. I get that. But you can start to change, right? Little incremental things, even. Start saying we're not going to eat processed junk. We're going to find a way to buy stuff that's good for you. And watch, you'll find, especially if you have kids, they're going to be like, man, this is really good. Stop watching television. Turn the doggone thing off. It's killing you, right? If you have a TV, our TV hasn't even been on and when it is, it's for shows that were broadcast 30 years ago, right? Or video games, right? Nintendo or PlayStation or whatever, right? Or buy movies. You can get cheap movies online. You can order DVDs, or like you go to Walmart and they have that basket that has movies for $2 or $4 or whatever. Every payday or whatever, pick out a movie that everybody wants to watch. But make sure it's a Shalom movie. Stop watching garbage. Stop watching things like Nightmare on Elm Street. And this is about health, about living. I don't put that stuff in my mind. Why? Because it takes my Shalom. Don't watch movies where people are murdered or raped or lied to. Right? Don't watch movies where women deceive men, and don't watch movies where men deceive women, right? Watch movies that edify you, that encourage you, especially encourage you in the Lord. And those are the best movies, right? Don't watch movies that are full of garbage. The Bible says, let no profane thing come out of your mouth. Stop watching shows that have profanity in them. Stop listening to people that tell you that they're Christians and their every other word out of their mouth is a profane word. That's garbage, right? It's like saying I'm a vegetarian and then you go to McDonald's and have a double cheeseburger. Just stop doing that. It's easy to do that, right? Turn off the TV. Turn off social media. Go and watch Jaron Lanier. He's one of the creators of virtual reality, and he's a tech giant. He's like a Steve Wozniak guy. Go and watch what he says about social media. Right? Turn that stuff off. Get off of Facebook. Get off of Instagram, right? Now, if you use it for your business, that's a different story, okay? Use it for your business. But stop scrolling that garbage, man, and letting everybody dump the devil's nonsense into your life, right? Stop doing that. That takes away your Shalom. What do you drink? Don't stop drinking ethyl alcohol. I think I said don't stop drinking. No, definitely stop drinking ethyl alcohol. You know what I just found out? I actually accidentally happened to be able to sit in on a meeting with a guy that's starting a brewery to make 0% alcohol beer. All kinds of craft beers. And I don't know much about beer. I used to when 40 years ago when I was in the Navy. But I don't know anything about it. But he was telling me they taste all these different craft beers that he makes. They taste just like regular beer and they have no alcohol. What a great thing, right? If you love the taste of beer, all these trying different, you don't need the alcohol. Ethyl alcohol will kill you. Okay? It's horrible. It's a terrible, toxic chemical. Stop drinking alcohol, right? Um, that's easy. Unless you're an alcoholic, then get some help, right? And that's another thing. It will take anything that you can't put down will take away your shalom, right? If you have to say, oh, I just have to have a beer, I just have to have a Coke, I just have to have this or have that, that takes away your shalom. You're saying you need that more than you need God, right? Because that's what you're saying. You say, I can't do without this thing. Well, that's ridiculous. The Bible says that we can do all things through Christ. So if you're saying there's something you can't do, you're saying, well, Jesus' power in me is not strong enough to overcome this alcohol. Stop drinking ethyl alcohol. Because it takes away your shalom, right? And here's the last thing. So we have community, family, God, number one, community, family, eating decent, good food. Now let's talk about what not to drink, ethyl alcohol, but what to drink, green tea and coffee. Why? Study after study after study shows that those things are good for you. In my prior genetics research, I used a chemical found in green tea called EGCG, right? Epigallocatechin galeate. Epigallocatechin galeate. It's been so long, I almost forgot. EGCG. You can look that up. It's in green tea. That's another reason that the Japanese have such healthy lives, is they fill their bodies with this chemical. It's a powerful antioxidant, maybe the most powerful antioxidant. Green tea and coffee. Coffee happens to have some really good antioxidative power as well. So give up the ethyl alcohol. If you love beer, get a 0% beer. Find one, and then start drinking green tea and coffee. What about sweets? Okay, I love sweets, right? I bake. Bake some stuff, right? Use the most natural sugars you can find. Try not to use refined sugars. But something you can do, something that I learned from a 75-year-old man that was in unbelievable shape, is eat chocolate chips, right? So I'll go buy a bag of Ghirardelli or whatever brand really good chocolate chips, and I'll just take 4 or 5 of those and pop them in my mouth, and that's my sweets for the day, right? Or if I bake, I'll bake a fresh, cinnamon cake or something like that. Or I make Scottish shortbread cookies. They have very little sugar, but they're really good. So that's how you have your sweets, right? And you say, well, I don't have time. But folks, you make time for what's important. Right, puppy? Anyway, the puppy just got here. But you can make time, right? If you turn off social media, you stop watching television, you quit sitting there on your phone all day for hours and hours and hours a day, you've freed up a whole bunch of time. You can spend more time reading the Bible. You can spend more time, you can bake some sweets if you want. So we have God, family, community, church. We have stopping ethyl alcohol completely, adding good fluids like green tea, lots of water, coffee, eating natural foods, okay? And the last thing is developing your shalom through contemplation and quietness. We live in a world that is bombarded with noise, right? Right now where I'm sitting out on the back porch of the farm, the wind is blowing through the trees, and there's some wind chimes chiming. And if I just sat here quietly, it would be very easy for me to just think about God and His goodness and watch the beautiful trees, the 100-foot tall pine trees swaying in the wind, and watch the leaves swirl around. And in the springtime, it's really beautiful with all the trees and full, the oaks and the maples and everybody else full of leaves. What if you live in a city? Well, there's got to be a park, right? If there's not a park, find a tree. There's got to be one tree. Stand right in front of it and just spend time looking at the leaves, right? Develop a contemplative habit. where you block out the nonsense of the world and you just spend time thinking about God, thinking about how pretty the blue sky is, thinking about how cute that dog is that just walked by you, right? Or that how pretty that cardinal is on the fence, or the blue jay, or even the crow that's walking across your yard. Quiet your mind and quiet your soul. Why? Shalom. Psalm 34, verse 14. That whole section of Psalm 34, but verse 14 especially, right? If you do those things, you will have what I have, right? If David promises you'll have that, right? You get those things in order, and you'll see dramatic changes in your health and your life. Those things are out of order. When those things are out of order, you're probably seeing all kinds of things. And some of you listening to this are already suffering from all these, having to take tons of medication, chronic health conditions, fatigue, all of these other things. And what is the end result of that? It's not guilt, right? If you're struggling with all these things or any of these things, the last thing you need is guilt. Don't have any guilt, right? Give it all to God, right? And if you don't know Jesus as your Savior, that's the most important thing. That'll change everything. But to get you started on a path of health, because I know a bunch of people that I know that love Jesus, and they're sick all the time. And it drives me nuts, because I'm thinking to myself, look, you're half my age. You have no business being sick like that, right? Yeah, don't have guilt, don't have shame. Have Jesus and have shalom. Get this shalom. Ask God to show you, Lord, help me to specifically know how to have shalom in my life. And you'll see dramatic health changes, I promise you. I love you. Puppy loves you. She's going to have to get a bath because she ran through a mud puddle. And God, most importantly, God loves you. Be blessed.